Looks like I have two files that are being created by my own phone here, so it looks like it's a seamless transition. My phone just told me that message. Hopefully that's the case. So technology is a second factor that's influencing globalization, and that is that television is particularly satellite and radio becoming more international through satellite radio and podcasts. But behind all of this is the internet, right? It's the internet which is what has opened up our ability to both spread content through media around the world and also to receive content in media from around the world. And then we also have streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and so on. So it's very easy today to bring in information. Technology is helping us bring in other countries of the world into our own country. A third factor is conglomerates. We've already discussed conglomerates to an extent. Conglomerates have to do with those giant companies that are constantly trying to spread their profit margin, to increase their profit margin by spreading content around the world. I mentioned Disney. We also have the News Corporation, which is the owner of Fox and also the London Times newspaper. We have the Viacom company, which is located in New York City for the most part. We have a big German company called Bertelsmann, which has a lot of properties and song publishing rights. There are tons of them. And then finally, all of this leads to a fourth factor, which is audience curiosity. And that's just people being curious about what else is out there. Especially when you start to travel, you start to say, I'm not satisfied with just my own culture anymore. I would love to hear some reggaeton, for example. It's a Caribbean form of reggae. I'd love to hear that because I was in Jamaica. That's what happens when you travel. It builds up your curiosity, and curiosity has to be built up. It's not natural. It's like the first time you try coffee. Do you like it? No. But now, are you a coffee fiend? Yeah, it took a while to cultivate that, right? Same goes for foreign media. Now, as you may suspect, there are criticisms. There are criticisms of globalization, lots of criticisms. One of them is that globalization is resulting in homogenization of media content. Homogenization or homogenization is same genre. Homogenization, same genre. And that's because corporations, global media conglomerates, they are risk aversive. If they find a formula that's successful, they're just going to try and repeat that formula until the audience gets burned out on it. That's why you have so many reality television shows based on song performance, right? Because The Voice, as a branch-off show following the same formula as Pop Idol, for example, with some variation, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a formula is established, Pop Idol, which, by the way, is not American. I'll tell you more about that later. But we bought the idea here and imported it. Excuse me, I have somebody at the door here. I'm recording a video. Thanks. All right, Nancy, the custodian, had to tell her to come back. All right, so homogenization is what I'm talking about, the sameness that is out there. And that sameness, that you can find The Voice in every single country at night, or the sameness when you turn on television. All the sitcoms seem to have a similar feel to them. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about not necessarily the specific content, but a formula, top radio formula, fast-paced talking DJs as opposed to a slow talking DJ. That's going on all around the world. There's a homogenization there because it's a successful formula. Secondly, a criticism of globalization is that there is an unfairness in information flow. And this unfairness has been brought to the attention of the world through the United Nations and one of its sub-organizations called UNESCO, which preserves historic sites across the world, is the poorer countries of the world and the smaller countries of the world and the more remote countries of the world, they make the argument at the level of UNESCO that there is unfairness in the information flow. There's unfairness first in the direction that most of it is going from the United States and Britain into those other countries, and I represent that in my chapter by a huge arrow. Most of the flow is from the US to Mexico. You don't have much Mexico media flowing into the United States. Direction is a problem. It's mostly one way. US out, Britain out. You can say Western countries out, and not much east, not much poor, not much south coming into those Western countries. Also the volume. It's not just the direction, it's that the amount of information is much more drastic. It's much more drastic. And then that leads to a third component of unfairness in information flow, and that is that countries get misrepresented. Okay, let's play a quick game here. I'm going to ask you to think of the first three adjectives that you can think of when I mention a country. Okay, Syria. Ready? Go. First three images that you think of Syria. Well, one is, I think you're probably thinking of ISIS, maybe. Another one is probably war. Maybe another one was revolution. You're probably thinking of a lot of ideas having to Syria, but are you thinking of the beauty of Syria? Yeah, did you know Syria is not a desert? I mean, it's got desert parts. Did you know it has greenery? Probably didn't know that, right? Syrians, pretty unhappy about that. You think about Syria, you think about a Syrian, you think about somebody who's dangerous, you think about a refugee. That country, the people in that country, misrepresentation. Why is that? The only time Syria is talked about in our country is when it's in the news because of war. I mean, not only time, but virtually only time. So country misrepresentation is another part of that criticism of unfair information flow. What are the theories that explain how that information flow takes place? You can look at those in the chapter, but it has to do with geography. If two countries are really close to each other, there's one of the theories that there will be more information flow across them. You know, France is right next to Germany. They even share a television station, Channel 5. So there's a lot of flow there. There's more likely to be flow there between France and Germany than between France and Argentina, which way is a way over here. Also trade between countries. China and the United States, a lot of trade going on. You can turn on your cable channel and you can look at CCTV 9 right now. It's one of the few foreign channels that are actually in the average United States cable television lineup. It's a Chinese channel. Part of that is because of our big trade relationship. Then also you have history between countries, which can involve war, both war against countries or countries that joined into war. And cultural similarities is another factor that influences whether countries exchange information. Do countries speak the same language? Do people in one country have an association with another country because there's a long history of heritage coming from that country? These are also factors that explain that information flow. And that takes us now to our final criticism for today, and that is the criticism of cultural imperialism. You know what imperialism is? It's when one country forces its will on another country. That's what imperialism is. The old style of imperialism took place through war. Yeah, you launched armies. Those armies invaded countries, and your country went in there. And if you go to Japan, it seems very American today because after World War II, when we bombed it twice, it became very commercialized, just like the United States. Its economy is very capitalistic. That's the old style of imperialism. The new imperialism today is known more as an electronic colonialism. Electronic colonialism. It's the idea that media content is invading another country. And the outcome of what happens is the culture is affected negatively when you look at it from a cultural imperialist standpoint. For example, if you go to France and you sit down for a meal in a restaurant, it's very annoying to the average American. First of all, it takes the waiter forever to come over to your table. And finally, the waiter comes over and then goes away and takes forever for them to come back. And then finally you get your meal. It's this tiny, tiny meal. And then out comes the next meal. And then out comes the next meal. And then forever to get the bill. Now, why is that? It's because the French have a completely different opinion of how to eat a meal. A meal is not meant to be rushed. You're not to be throwing your food down all at once when it arrives at the table. You're not to be out of there so that the waitress can flip the table, or the server, I should say, could also be a male, so that the server can flip the table and start working on tips for the next table. No, that's not the way the French eat. The French like to eat their food in stages. That's why you have an appetizer. That's why you have an entree. That's why you get a cheese plate for your dessert. That's why you have a digestive at the end. A digestive is a little shot of liqueur, an orange-based liqueur. Take one shot at the end, you sip it actually, and it digests the food so that your stomach can relax. You're not meant to be eating in a car with a burrito. The cup holder is for a cup. It's not for a burrito. You're not driving and eating. That's not the way that you eat. You don't eat with a tight stomach in France. You spend time with the person you're eating with. You enjoy their company, their conversation. You're not doing work. That's to be shut out. That's the French way of life. Not for everybody, of course. So what happens when you have a bunch of American foreign media content like Big Bang Theory coming into France, and in the middle of Big Bang Theory are all these advertisements for Burger King? And Burger King is not just selling a product, it's selling a way of life. It's selling that you can get a Big Mac. It's selling that you can eat whatever you're eating in the cup holder of your car. Lots of restaurants are selling food this way. It's meant to be eaten fast. I mean, we call it fast food. What kind of an idea is that? So cultural imperialism can occur when another country's media content invades that country and it starts to change the culture. And that's when people get upset when they're indigenous peoples or people who are from that country start to adopt the clothing and the eating patterns and the lifestyle and the way that people talk and ultimately social relations that are coming in from another country. Which brings me right back to Britain when I'd sit there in the evenings in my parents' house and I would have to shake myself. What country am I in? Am I in the United States because of the TV that I'm watching? Or am I in Britain? So there you have it, globalization taking place all around us, and it's only increasing. Have a great day.